Daily Detroit is brought to you by the community. Support our work at patreon.com/dailydetroit.
This is your Daily Detroit for Friday, July 12th, 2019. I'm Sven Gustafson.
And I'm Jer Stays. Welcome to the weekend. We're going to talk about a few stories around town right after this. Daily Detroit is brought to you in part by Repurpose. That's where you can get hired by Detroit's best startups and companies. Repurpose connects top talent like you with purpose-driven companies based on values, experience, and culture fit. Join their talent community at repurpose.co. That's repurpose.co.
Republican lawmakers in Lansing have come out with their own alternative proposal to Governor Gretchen Whitmer's plan to fix the damn roads in Michigan. Republicans have called the governor's plan to raise the gas tax by 45 cents per gallon a non-starter. Their new proposal mirrors a plan advanced by the West Michigan Policy Forum to borrow money to pay for teacher pensions. Specifically, the plan calls for borrowing $10 billion by issuing a 30-year pension bond. The state would then invest the money and use the returns to pay for teacher pensions and to pay off the debt. They say that could free up around $1 billion a year in school aid fund money for pensions to instead fix the roads. Whitmer has panned the idea and notes that her predecessor, former Governor Rick Snyder, rejected a similar plan when he was in office. She's also said that the state needs to raise an additional $2.5 billion a year to fix Michigan's abysmal roads and bridges, a figure which comes from the Snyder administration. Republicans say that getting a 4% return on investment funds created from the borrowed money would help them to meet the plan's goals.
I have a lot of reservations about this one, buddy.
You're not alone, Jer.
I was here for the bankruptcy.
Me
This
too.
sounds like exactly what the city of Detroit did before it all went to hell.
Yeah.
And this does not scream fiscally responsible. I mean, look, I just thought about this. They're taking the money from teacher pensions, right?
Yeah.
What's a group
Convenient-
that doesn't?
convenient
What's a
target
group
there.
that the Republicans or that group of Republicans doesn't like very much?
I don't know, teachers?
Bingo. So this does not seem like an on the level kind of thing. And it doesn't seem fiscally responsible because if you look at the feedback from a variety of sources, both conservative and liberal, this isn't fiscally responsible.
No, definitely not. I would note that the plan to borrow $10 billion, that is approximately 6% of the entire state budget as proposed by Governor Whitmer for 2020, which is about a $60 billion budget. So that's a lot of money to borrow for a state. I mean, that's crazy. This caught my eye. I took this from Nancy Kaffer's op-ed in the Free Press today, which is really good. But this is a guy named Matt Fabian, who's a partner at Municipal Market Analytics, and he told the publication Bond Buyer. I actually have a friend who used to write for Bond Buyer way back in the day.
Sounds like thrilling reading, my friend.
But he said, quote, pension bonds undertaken to do things not related to pensions are the worst kind of pension bonds, in that they are being deployed almost purely as a budget gimmick, adding leverage, that means debt, and risk to a government's budget in exchange for a few years' relief from tax hikes or spending cuts.
Well, isn't this a kind of tactic used when you have a short-term crisis? If you think about like an economic downturn that you think you're going to get out of, those kind of things. I feel like this is deployed in those kind of things. Although Michigan's finances are not great and we have not kept our tax rates up with inflation, things are stable.
Yeah, they have good credit rating. I mean, Kaffer says in her piece that, Michigan could conceivably just borrow the money and do a much less complicated scheme and probably be less risky.
How much of this, though, is tied to that idea? Isn't there like a national pledge that many Republicans have signed to never raise taxes under any circumstance? Like, isn't it that
Grover Norquist, the same guy who wants to strangle government in a bathtub, which is a lovely image. And
yeah. I mean, I'm all for a smaller government and all that stuff, but this does not seem like a good idea, and this seems like the kind of thing that you put through during the summertime when people aren't paying as much attention, hoping that we'll just like ignore it and that they'll just raid the teacher pension funds. And then somehow, and here's the thing, I don't trust that this will work out well. our past shows that it doesn't work out well when you raid one fund to pay for another thing.
No, and this comes on the heels of what is essentially another proposal to raid funds to pay for another fund, which was Lee Chatfield. I think he's the he's the Speaker of the House. He proposed basically getting rid of the portion of the gas tax that goes to pay for essentially schools and local governments and having it pay for all roads, which great. Roads get more money, but then you're giving yet another hit to school funding in Michigan. And last I checked, our schools aren't doing so great in Michigan. They need all the funding they can get and more.
One thing I'd note is the position of folks like the Detroit Regional Chamber on this kind of thing, especially with the road funding, saying, this is what we actually need. What I'm starting to get sick of is seeing budget things, and you can apply it with a conservative view. You could do a liberal view, whichever, but I am really sick of the lack of shared facts and like shared reality here, right? Because it's going to cost this much to fix these roads properly. We either pay what it costs to fix it, or we accept crappy roads. And so far, it seems like we're accepting crappy roads.
Right. And this proposal, it's important to note, where, going back to Governor Snyder's administration, the consensus was that the state needs $2.5 billion to fix the roads. This would raise actually less than $1 billion a year. This would raise, I think, by their estimation, it's $980 million.
So it would raid a fund that's promised to people and not get the job done.
Yeah. I'm really starting to wonder, though, how this impasse ends. So we've basically outlined the two Republican counter proposals, if you want to call them that. The governor has proposed raising the gas tax by 45 cents. Nobody likes that plan. I understand. I don't like it.
No, I don't think it's going to happen. But
no, clearly it's not. But, the governor says, I'm not signing a budget until we have a roads plan in place that we all can agree on. But, where are the Republicans going to budge? I don't see it. I don't know how this ends. I don't see them ever... I don't see them ever getting off the dime and, swallowing the hard truths that we need to either cut spending drastically somewhere. And I don't know where you do that without inflicting a lot of damage, or we need to, suck it up and pay more money. I just don't know where this ends, man.
Sven, so I touched on this on the show the other day, but you're here now, and in the in-between time, I had a chance to roll through the Jefferson Chalmers neighborhood and the water side of Jefferson over there on the far east side. Mm-hmm. Beautiful area of town, really cool little houses. I love those streets. Some of them have brick over there, really cool. You've got the canals.
Yep.
But there is some bad stuff going down over there, especially when it comes to flooding. And it's been a bad year in the wake of a series of some pretty serious storms. And the key to these storms is they dropped rain really quickly, overwhelming the system.
Well, I saw, a friend of mine post on Instagram. This was a month or so ago, but he was at the Detroit Yacht Club on Belle Isle and he posted photos of the docks, which were submerged underwater. So there was a couple inches of water on top of the docks. You'd have to slosh through them to go walk out to your boat. I mean, that was insane. I've never seen that before.
Oh, it's really high. And when I went through Harbor Island, there's a little bridge there. Yep. It's up to the bridge. It's actually going over some people's walls. And so there's sandbags that have been deployed. I mean, that water level seems to be historically high. And to be kind of specific where I was, I checked out Scripps Street. I checked out E.B. Ford Park. Mm-hmm. Water is literally running through people's yards, down their driveways, and then down Scripps.
Wow.
There are whole basements that are flooded, like little dirty, moldy swimming pools in people's houses over there. And the city says that they've dropped something like 70,000 sandbags or something crazy like that. It's still going. And there's a real fear on the part of the Detroit Water and Sewage Department. Are they going to be able to handle if there is an uptick in more water or more water rising? And the water is going to continue to rise. I think the crest isn't due for a couple of more weeks. And for those non-boating nerds out there, the crest is kind of like when the top level of the water rise. And I know people are frustrated over there. I was talking to a couple of friends over there. I have some friends who grew up over there on Harbor Island, moved away. And I remember with them that there has been this kind of flooding in the past. This is not unheard of. It's not crazy, but it happens every few decades. And it makes me wonder, should we just build the infrastructure right so that that area can see the kind of benefit that it really could? It's a weird area over there topography too. A lot of it is actually about 10 feet underneath. It's like a bowl, kind of like in New Orleans.
Yeah.
So you've got a few streets, I think Essex and a few others. There was a good piece that I found after I rolled through scripts that with our friends at Detour, Ashley and them over there, that actually did a piece outlining it was Essex Street specifically.
Yeah.
That's, I think, 10 feet below the rest of the land over there. It's crazy.
Yeah, I wonder, you mentioned like a bowl like New Orleans. I wonder if there's any thought being given right now to like building up levees to protect that neighborhood from something like this in the future.
Well, if that neighborhood's going to turn around, and I think it's got so much potential. I mean, who
For
doesn't
sure.
want to live on a canal?
That
I
goes
want
right
to.
out to the Detroit River and the Great Lakes by extension, yeah.
Yeah, like I have dreams about living over there. It's so cool. But in order for that to like spark off, you've got to have some infrastructure to make sure that this kind of thing happens as least as possible. This is only tangentially Detroit, but it's Friday, and I thought it would be a good thing to talk about because
I'm thirsty. I don't know about you.
I'm quite thirsty. We're recording this at the Detroit Shipping Company Podcast Detroit Studios.
And it's getting hot in here.
It's getting hot in here, and you know what they have downstairs, and you know what's everywhere, and it was at various events we've been at, and I don't remember seeing it before. The White Claw. So to borrow from Jerry Seinfeld, like, what is up with the White Claw? It's like everywhere. There's new news that apparently it is second only to Blue Moon in sales, which is kind of crazy. Although it's kind of weird to me to mix up seltzer and craft beer sales. Like, to me, it's kind of weird to do that.
But they both come in cans, or at least White Claw does. I don't know about Blue Moon.
Right. Well, we do have a very loyal Blue Moon listener. And I hope he's enjoying his Blue Moon right now.
Interesting. So Blue Moon, so White Claw, for those of you who may not be familiar, it's a hard seltzer. It's essentially bubbly club soda water spiked with alcohol.
Is that the bartender version? Because you're the former bartender.
I mean, that's basically what it is. It comes in a variety of flavors. 2 grams of carbs, 5% alcohol, comparable to a bottle of Budweiser. I've only tasted it just because I got to see what that's like. And it tastes like a LaCroix with some vodka added in it.
That's the best description I've ever heard.
I'm not a fan of it. Mostly because I don't like vodka.
Well, some of the flavors kind of remind me of a Red Bull in vodka with that kind of metallic taste.
Gross.
I mean, not all of them. I like a couple of them, but a couple of the flavors were just not my deal. My thing with the hard seltzer is, like, if you're going to go through all that, I mean, it's a malt beverage, right?
I don't think it's vodka, though.
Right. Because going
back
back
to say, hard seltzer with vodka in it.
Thinking about my early drinking days, going to Canada was always great because Mike's Hard Lemonade was a lot better in Windsor because it was actual vodka. And yet in America, it's always been a malt beverage and they taste completely different. Mike's Hard Lemonade is actually tolerable in Canada. Whereas here, it's just kind of like this weird kind of like fizzy drink. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I don't get it. I mean, I don't understand how it showed up so fast, but I mean, it's definitely one of those like thinkable, but not really. I mean, this is apparently what beverage experts are saying, is that it's drinkable, but not thinkable.
Yeah. I just wonder if it's going to become like the new Zuma, or
Zima?
Zima. I'm sorry. Zima. Yeah. And like it's here and it's big for a few years. And then, we'll look back out on it as like, oh, remember when White Claw was all the rage in the late teens?
But that makes me think about all of those craft brewers that are having to make all these new beers all the time. Is that just kind of like how booze is going to be now, that things are in and out for a year and you just got to kind of ride the trends? All right. That's our week. Thanks to Cheyenne Nocerini, Randy Walker, Bob and Dave at Podcast Detroit, Ryan at Repurpose, Billy at Milo, Lisa, who's out there making things happen for us, and of course, thanks to you for listening.
I'm Sven Gustafson.
And I'm Jer Stays.
Take care of each other, and we'll see you around Detroit.
You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.